But is that the strength of the Alien franchise as well? Is the fact that it's most movies in that tend to be one thing in a way, and Alien isn't. It is a monster film, but it's not just a monster film. It is about corporate greed, but it's not just about corporate greed. It is about working stiffs trying to get by, but it's also not just about working stiffs trying to get by. It's about genetic engineering, but it's also not about genetic engineering. Is that why it keeps being able to survive as a franchise in a series and create this sort of interest when it comes to the role playing?
Yeah, I mean, there is so much to play with there. It's a rich universe, and that's why when people were telling me it's a one note thing, I was like, you clearly don't know the franchise if you think that. There's so many things, and it's like the funny thing is that if you look through the history of stuff, like some of the old comics, so some of the old comics are fantastic and amazing. I love them, but others, I'm looking at them, and I'm like, you guys put this really awesome thing in the background and then wrote a generic alien story in the foreground. And I care about that little thing in the background. That's fantastic. Why aren't we doing something with that? And I'd play that up in the game. It's like I envision, like, I can't say, did the writer do that way on purpose? But I can envision what it was is writer comes up with a really cool idea, pitches it. His editor's not sure. They bring it to the studio. The studio's like, well, that's crazy. Why don't we just have the alien show up? And so the thing that they wanted to get pushed in the back, but that's not what's going on now. I have brought radical ideas to Disney for this stuff, and we get approvals on it. They're like, that's interesting. Let's do something with it. And then I reach out to Cold Iron, the fire team people, or I reached out to Titan, and I'm like, can we get some coordination going here? I pitched the idea to Titan about doing the adventures in the back of the books, the 3 novels. Anyone who doesn't know about that, Colony Ward's the first one that has it. I think I see your cover. You got the cover back there, right?
Yeah.
There's 2 more coming. Fire team reached out. I reached out to Fire team, and they said, "Oh, we're actually using the core book as our reference already. So here's the stuff we created. Does this work?" And there's some things that they were like way off on that I realized they were way off on this thing. And they are so far along in their thing that it needs to be this way. So I can't tell them, no, you guys can't do that, because that's not my job anyway. Like I've on a bunch of people who've tried to be consultants this as well. As a consultant, your job is not to say, no, that's not canon. Your job is to say, that can only work in canon if we do this as well. Okay. So I built a whole corporate structure of being bought out and all, and then buying yourself back out and all this other stuff around to fit the narrative that they needed for what was happening 20 years after us in the timeline on Fireteam. And I put that all in the Colonial Marines book. So when people played Fireteam and read that, they're like, oh yeah, I know about that already. I covered their butt, and they covered mine with things too. It's great. It's just great working together like this. The Titan thing, it's funny. It's funny because I mean, Titan is so they're awesome, and they're so on board with all this stuff now. But at first, it's like I remember when we first got the license, not just Titan, but everybody we talked to, because we reached out to Dark Horse and this person and that person, all this stuff. And we had a big conference call, and we said, "Hey guys, we've got the role-playing game license, and we want to like have a coordinated universe going here." And everybody's like, "Who are you? What's the role-playing game?" Nobody was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll get back to you." But we didn't hear from anyone. And then we started getting awards, and everybody's like, "Yeah, let's do it. It makes sense. Let's do it." And now they get it. They didn't get it before. I remember somebody saying to me, "It was like, well, you didn't really write anything. You made a game, right?"
Oh,
dear. Don't understand the way these books work. So it's gaming is coming a long way in this book. The pandemic helped a lot for that, but the money that games make on Kickstarter and everything now, it's like people are realizing that this thing is really awesome, and it's been there this whole time. And kids don't need to get beat up in the schoolyard over it anymore.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, it's a little late for us, but
it's a little late for us, Drew.
Yeah. I have to say, I I'd been eyeing the novel for a while just because I like Alien, but to actually see at the bottom that there's an RPG scenario in the back of the novel, that was as hoopy as fuck. I mean, how
he kept talking about it. He kept like, it's so cool. It's so weird.
He was like, I've got to order this book.
It's got an adventure in the back. We're like, yeah. It's amazing.
I have other initiatives that I'm trying with other companies to try and get this type of integration thing going with a lot of properties. Where you'll have something else come that has something that will tie into this, and it helps everybody's sales. And the biggest thing that I think that my passion about this, which is totally syncing with the way Disney does things now, and why things like this are happening, is interaction. Like, I want you to feel like you're immersed in this universe. So when you read Colony War, the end scene of the novel, passing ships in the night, your characters from the RPG are showing up in the beginning. Okay. And so it's really just happening at the same time. In the second book, in the middle of the book, someone says, we need to launch more ships to do X, Y, and Z, and check that thing out. And they don't go back to what happened with that because the plot goes on to something else. You guys are the ones that launch in that ship. Okay. In Fireteam, there's someone explains that 20 years ago, a general did XYZ and a colonial marine team did blah, blah, blah. And you're like, they're talking about me when I played the game. That I want that. And like, you look at what Disney's doing with the Star Cruiser stuff, hotel at the, it's like you go to this hotel at the Disneyland, which it's called the Star Cruiser, I think now. Yeah. It's like you go there and like, there are people there that'll talk to you as if you're on a starship with them. And if you do what that person says, you'll wind up being on a secret mission in the thing. That's actually a staff member that's talking to you, and it's like, I don't know if this one's true, but I heard that stormtroopers will come in and turn over your room to see if you're holding contraband and stuff like that. So it's like, so it's like, this is amazing stuff. It's like, I'm here, I'm part of this. And it's like, even when you take the stuff home, and then that's where I'm coming in with it. Like,
absolutely.
So, I applaud people listening to me about this now, because this type of stuff I've said for a long time. And Disney started doing it before I was connected to them at all. Disney's like, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And I saw it then. I was like, now's the time for me to pitch these ideas,
Yeah.
And everybody's seeing the value of it. And it's all thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
But it's amazing how little things can pull players in. Like, we did Star Wars for one group, and I gave them a quad jumper. And this wasn't your group, actually. I gave you the quad jumper.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say.
No, I was going to do this with you too, because it worked the first time. And I gave them the quad jumper, and they flew around in it for about a year. And then they were on
Jakku, and then
they did. They did. And when it happens now, I got a message not that long ago from one of the guys that played it and said, every time I see Force Awakens, I can't not get mad when they blow up my quad jumper. And it's a nothing thing, but it now matters. So I think
it's a huge thing, even though it's a nothing thing, because you really feel like I'm in the movie now. I'm in this now. And that's a great feeling, No, that's awesome that you did that, man. That's fantastic. I love it. I'm laughing about it. That's great.
So I love that you're incorporating that stuff, because that is a really cool thing when the players can go, oh, that's us. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, role playing has always been about interaction and immersing and becoming the thing. So if we're dealing with a property, how can we increase that so you feel like you're part of that property rather than just part of your gaming group? Like Dungeons and Dragons, it's not Dungeons and Dragons has got, all these different worlds, but at the same time, at its base core, Dungeons and Dragons is designed to be any fantasy world you want.
Right.
These are the rules, but you can make your own fantasy world. Doesn't matter. Okay. With Alien, it doesn't really work that way, because you're playing because you want to be part of that universe. Right. Same thing with Star Wars. Okay. So because we have all this other material, how do we make you feel like you're part of it. And I just realized something about when I said that Dungeons and Dragons thing. What the hell were they called? There was, when I was a kid, they had these Dungeons and Dragons books that were like Choose Your Own Adventures.
Oh, okay.
But oh my gosh, I can't
Fighting
remember.
Fantasy?
Fighting Fantasy, I think it was.
No,
Like
that's later.
This is about to age us, Adam.
I know.
Edit this out, right? You can edit this out, right?
I used to read those Choose Your Own Adventures all the time. It's like, keep your thumb on the page.
Yep. Yeah.
Go-
I don't know if you guys are aware, but I wrote 2 Choose Your Own Adventure graphic novel.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a witch one. I remember. What was the other one though?
The other one hasn't come out yet. It comes
Okay,
out
that
this
would be why
summer.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's Journey Under the Sea. It's Eighth Grade Witch and then Journey Under the Sea. They're books that came out in the 80s and 90s that we have adapted to graphic novel form for the first time because Choose Your Own Adventure has never been in comic form. They're called Endless Quest books.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I found my favorite one called Mountain of Mirrors. Great Larry Elmore art on the covers. What do you call it? Yeah, but those were the first time as a kid that, and then this led me to Choose Your Own Adventure after these.
Yeah,
was like it's me. I'm doing.
Yeah.
It, I have other projects that I can't give details about yet. That I've come up with a format that's going to take that to another level. So eventually, you guys can, if you want to have me back on, I'll
absolutely
talk about
Definitely,
it.
Anytime.
This interaction thing is just really important to me.
That's amazing.
I lived in my fantasy world as a kid.
Yeah.
I got beat up a lot.
Yep.
I was the nerd. I was into the shit that nobody liked. I made the mistake of holding the door open for the girls on the girls' line at school, so I got punched in the stomach by the guys. Nerd. People don't seem to. There's still bullies, of course, but being a nerd is cool now. So,
right.
It certainly wasn't when we were young.
No, I'm very happy for my kids who are both into all this stuff that it's now embraced rather than me worrying if it's something stupid. You're getting picked on because you like Dungeons and Dragons or Star Trek or Star Wars or Spider-Man or whatever.
Robotech.
All that stuff is coming to its own now, and then it's accepted by the cool kids too.
Yeah.
So I mean, escaping into the stuff, escaping into comics, escaping into role-playing games, all this stuff is what got me through that bullshit when I was a kid. So.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of agency.
It's a creative adventure too.
Right.
It is so creative. Brings out like I know, like when we were doing it, we were spending. I'd hide myself away in a room for days just writing the whole adventure out. Not on a novelist level, obviously, but yeah.
The funny thing for me was I used to run a few games at a charity I worked for. It was a kids charity, and we dealt with kids that had all sorts of. Some had very serious problems, suicide attempts, and stuff like that. I didn't get them until they'd received professional help, and then they were trying to reintegrate, and they were coming to us for help. So I was running different RPGs, and we had a lot that were bullied. And the thing that surprised me in a really good way was that these kids, some of them had been terribly bullied, but all the characters they chose tended to be things like clerics and paladins, and were all about trying to help people. I didn't see any want to become murder hobos. None wanted to take out that frustration on the world at large. They all were trying to channel, how can I make it better? And I think role-playing games and that, like you said, that interaction and that getting into it, and they were using it to escape, but escape in a positive way, not more anger and more hate. And
so it's funny, at the risk of sounding pathetic, in my case, I was always the thief. And the reason why I was the thief was because I thought it was more important to be able to hide. So, but that's interesting that these kids that needed help wanted to help others. That's
I was surprised. I expected that there'd be a bit of a aggressive outlet, but it really didn't happen. Which also surprised me about Alien in that the games are so much built normally on you're the hero and it's about this big progression from first to 20th level and all this sort of stuff. And every fight's balanced. And then we get Alien, which sometimes feels like a plot device in that once the alien shows up, you're screwed. And what surprised me, though, with the players was, like, if you have a lot of times if something has happened in another game and a player dies, or character dies.
Oh, dear.
I got to tell you, I'm not going to tell you which book. But hold your thought for a second there, because I don't want to forget this. I recently edited a campaign book, and I wanted to kill myself because the guy, it was 4 different writers, and they kept saying the players die. I was like, no, we don't want that.
No.
Then they don't buy any more books.
Yes. I was like, what are you doing? I wrote this long thing to the publisher. I was like, we need to understand the difference between players and characters.
All right. So at this point, when the players die, what you're going to do is,
So,
find new friends.
The Terminator pulls out a gun and shoots the player in the head. I hope not.
Then we have some concerns. Yes.
But yeah, that's
Luke Skywalker lobs your arm off.
Yeah. but we have that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off.
No, that was
good.
great. But we get that difference because, like, if it happens in a normal game, I've never had anyone flip the table kind of anger, but there's a different, like, it goes like, oh, I'm dead. It's a really depressing. It's like, okay, Emily, this is what's happening with the alien. So the way I do it is I'll just tell them, and because I try to give them as much storytelling as they want to use, and I'll go, all right, this is what the alien did to you, and I just go, how do you want this to happen? And it's not like, oh, I'm dead. It's like, okay. Okay. The alien, like, it grabs me and it like Chris, it started to tear out my guts.
Never heard someone so excited to be torn in half.
So excited to die.
That's the thing. I'm constantly getting, hi, you don't know me. I'm a huge fan of yours. I got to tell you, I died the most amazing way. I'm constantly getting those. Constantly. It's great.
Yeah.
And those are the people who get it. Those are the people who are playing this to have fun, not because, well, your alien killed my guy and I had all these XP points and now you ruined my life. And I love Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. I haven't played since. I'm definitely showing my age. I haven't played since 3rd edition, and I barely played 3rd edition. 2nd edition was where I lived, but I'm a huge fan of that type of fiction and those type of gaming and everything. And I like that heroic stuff, but at the same time, I don't want everything to be like that.
Right.
I want there to be different things. I want there to be like this with the alien, I randomly said Terminator, but you guys know I am also working on Terminator.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do everything we like.
When I talked to them about the Terminator, I told them the same thing that I had said to Free League about the alien, and they were Free League was totally in agreement with me. And in the end, Nightfall was absolutely as well. That T-800, you just want to turn around and go away. You don't want to try and fight that thing. It can't be. Arnold cannot be easy to beat. You can't have that. You can't have it. Then there's 30 T-800s, and I'm going to take them all down with one auto spray of my gun. No, can't be like that. It has to feel as deadly as it is in the movies.
Absolutely.
So why do you think, because this was something else I was thinking of before, like with these, like Terminator isn't as old as some of the other ones you've worked on though, but like I remember when Independence Day came out, went and watched it, enjoyed it. Yeah, it had some issues, but it was just okay. But then the second one came out 10 or 15 years or something later.
I've never seen it.
And I was really meh. I didn't even care. But
I heard that was the reaction, and I don't even... Yeah. I haven't seen it.
But then we have something like Space 1999, and it's like, huh? And Buck Rogers, when it was like, huh? Much older properties. But when they sort of get mentioned that there might be Space 1999, or there could be Buck Rogers, or there could be a new Babylon 5 again, or what have you, that are older properties, it's sort of like, oh, that could be interesting. What do you think it is about those older ones like that you've worked on that still have this sort of love or this that sparks that interest? There has to be something about them that makes them different.
I'm going to turn this one around on you, actually. Age is a huge factor with this. How old were you when you saw Space 1999 and Buck Rogers?
I was a kid. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So those are ingrained in your head.
Mm.
We were in college when Independence Day came out, right? Or after college, in the 90s, in the mid 90s. Oh, not you. Not
not Emily. No.
Yeah.
Hey, at least I was alive by the mid 90s, so I existed.
So what are you, 17? Is that what it is?
28.
28, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's worse.
What are you hanging around with these guys?
I know, right? It doesn't make sense.
Hey.
Well, I would talk later.
We're pretty cool.
We need to get you to somewhere else.
They're really cool, guys.
No, I'm the youngest one here. I'm not actually the youngest one. We have a wide group, but
yeah, we
that's
do.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we do. Youngest is 13.
No.
Yeah. Youngest is Ghost's son. So
13. Yeah.
Emily, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in all seriousness, Emily, what you don't go when Space 99 gets mentioned. You're like, space what? Right? You don't give a shit, right? And should you? It wasn't in your formative years, was it?
It was not. No.
Yeah. So what do you hear is coming back that you're like, it's going to be something completely different than what?
Absolutely.
We do,
Yeah.
So that's all it comes down to. And so it's like when I went after a whole bunch of licenses when I first decided to do this. Have you guys heard the story of when I decided to get into this business or no? I don't.
It would be good to hear again.
Yeah.
Okay. So I worked for Rockstar Games.
Mm-hmm.
I signed NDAs. I'm not allowed to say what I did for them, but I worked for them for 17 years, and I worked on every game from GTA 3 up through Red Dead Redemption. And I was making really good money. And I went to a comic shop, and I saw there was a Planet of the Apes comic that was coming out, and I was like, "Whoa! This is out of nowhere. This has been forever. Who's doing this? Marvel, DC?" And it was a company called Mr. Comics. I was like, if someone called Mr. Fucking Comics, so can fucking I. So I got an entertainment lawyer, and I created Blam Ventures, which is my studio.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the only book that I've worked on that doesn't have my logo on it.
Okay.
The Blam logo is the Alien stuff. And that's contractual stuff. So, because Blam was not hired to work on the Alien stuff.
Right.
Hired to work on
right.
But like, actually, I don't know if it's going to be on Terminator either, because it was just me. Tangent, regardless. Most of my books have the Blam logo on it.
Mm.
What do you call it? I went after things I thought I could get. So I inquired about whether Planet of the Apes was ending with Fox, and it turned out that it was ending soon. But they weren't really happy with what had happened with the Mr. Comics situation, because they put out 5 issues that were really good, actually, but then they never collected them, and they had promised Fox that they were going to collect it. So they were like, we're not going to renew their license. So I was like, all right, if I just hang out, keep being friendly with them, I'll eventually get Planet of the Apes. That's what led to my first Planet of the Apes novel. But they had forgotten that I wanted comics. So when I went to Licensing Expo, we sat down and I met with the people and I explained to them what I wanted to do. They're like, whoa. What happened with Mr. Comics? We didn't clearly get exactly what we had hoped for. We don't want to deal with comics now. And I was like, oh shit. So I was like, well, when I say comics, I really mean like an illustrated novel, like a novel with paintings in it, sort of like that Aliens Tribes book that you guys put out in the 90s. And the woman who was in licensing at Fox at the time was Debbie Alshan, and she said, Aliens Tribes is the favorite book that I've ever worked on. You have your license.
So amazing.
Because I pulled that out of my ass.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask, illustrated novels are a very big thing in like the Japanese. There's a lot of the Japanese light novels, they always are illustrated. It just sort of seems to be how they do things, but it's not as big over here. We tend to just do novels or comics, not sort of any sort of blending. So I was going to ask, was that a conscious decision to do Planet of the Apes that way?
No, not at all. And I didn't because I wasn't a novelist. I'd never written a novel in my life. I was trained in comics, and I was like, shit, what am I going to do now?
A lot more words.
I had no confidence in myself to do it. No confidence at all. And so I brought in two friends of mine one of them thought he was going to be a novelist since high school. Another one, and we worked out the plot together. And then all three of us broke up chapters to start writing. And we would give the chapters to the editor and not tell them who wrote what. And so the editor just assumed that all three of us were writing everything and was like, this chapter's great, but what the hell happens in this next chapter? I don't understand. Why are you changing tenses and everything? And every time it was something wrong with what those guys had written. And I felt like, oh shit, what are we going to do? And both of them got pissed off and left. Okay. So then now it's all on me. And I still didn't think I had the strength to do it, but I had to keep telling myself, well, the editor said what I was doing was good. So I just got to keep going. And that's what happened. And I gave them story credit in the book because I wasn't going to pretend they didn't do anything. You know?
Right.
And I don't think either of them are in the business at all anymore. But anyway, that's a tangent. And that's how I became a novelist. But going back to what we were talking about licenses, I tried for Planet of the Apes. I tried for Space 1999 because I had actually just gotten into a huge Space 1999 kick.
Oh, okay.
I think the DVDs were being released again at that time. And I was just so happy to see it. My childhood memories of Space 1999 was during the summers. We lived in Queens. You guys are on the East Coast, right?
We're Toronto, roughly,
Toronto.
in Canada.
Oh,
and
you're in Eastern time, but you're not in.
Yeah. We're in Canada, and Adam is actually in Australia. He got it very early in the morning.
Yep.
Well, so it's
still on the East Coast.
Right? Yeah. It is.
East Coast of Australia.
Yes.
Okay, so never mind then. So Queens, New York, where Spider-Man lives. That's where I grew up. What do you call it? Our house was like, I mean, it's the 70s and 80s, and not everybody has air conditioning.
Okay.
An air conditioner in my parents had my parents' bedroom was the third floor renovated attic. So my parents had a very expensive air conditioner there. And during the summers, me and my sister would sleep on the floor in their bedroom, to have the air conditioner. Why the hell am I telling you this story? There was a reason for this.
Space 1999.
So during the summers, my dad was a cop, and he worked from 4 to midnight. Okay, so during summers we were allowed to stay up late. I used to watch The Honeymooners, followed by Twilight Zone, followed by Star Trek, and now we're talking about 1 a.m. Space 1999 would start. So my dad would come home for Star Trek. We'd watch Star Trek together, and he'd watch Space 99 after it, and I'd be fading off and trying to stay awake. And I just remember these bizarre psychedelic images of the main character from the second season, Maya, her shape-shifting, like something that weird shape-shifting noise would come out. Wait, what's going on? So I had not seen the show really until those DVDs came out. Oh, that's not true. Shortly before the DVDs came out, I started getting bootleg VHSs at conventions because that was the only way to get it at the time. So that's when I first got really into it. So I was like, all right, I'm going after this license because I had it fresh in my mind. I also went after Star Trek. I almost got Star Trek. Star Trek was an all-time low. Nemesis had tanked. Enterprise had been canceled. Now was the time, if ever, I was going to be able to get it. I was making decent money. I got in friendly with the people at Paramount because it was Paramount then, I think. Yeah, I think it was Paramount then. It wasn't CBS yet. And I paid to have a 6-page comic of this is what it'd be like done to show them. And they're like, nobody's ever done this. People come in and say, we want this license. We think we'll make you this money. Is that okay? And then they try and figure out what to do creatively. And they're like, you're approaching this very strangely, but we're like, because I was like, I'm approaching it like a creator. I'm not approaching it like a businessman. A little company called IDW, which you probably know very well.
Yes.
Outbid me on the license, and that's how they got the Star Trek comic license. The Space 1999 I had been trying to get that. So yeah, I tried getting that then and didn't get it. And for 4 years, I kept giving them new pitches and they ignored me. And then they had fired their licensing department at ITV, and they had, before they brought the transition in, they had hired, the best way to describe it is freelance licensors. So these people who work for several companies at the same time, and they're like, they manage the licenses until you get your own licensing department set up. So this guy came in and he called me and he goes, "Hey, I've just gone through the drawers of all these proposals, and there's about 9 here from your company. Do you want to do something?" And I said, yes. So that's how I got the Space 1999. That became a huge fiasco. We were originally supposed to do much more than we actually were able to do, but it got transferred to the American office. The American office didn't want us to do these things, and yada, yada, yada. So I was lucky to get the 2 books out I got. Ironically, later on, when the departments changed again, I got contacted by the company and said, "Do you want to do it again?" So, it just depends on who's there at the time, or your benefit, But yeah, so we were planning for Space 1999. We were planning on doing the 2 books we did, and then doing a story that tells how the people that we introduced in the first book are trying to reach the characters from Alpha across the universe, and their 30-year span trip that they take to get there. And then we were going to do season 3, which was 30 years later. So we had this huge thing planned. We were going to do over 12 books, and that just all went to hell. But
I noticed they're quite hard to get now. The Buck Rogers is still available, but I found the Space 1999 is quite hard to get.
Yeah, I'm trying to do something to make that available again, the Space 1999 stuff. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Some kind of omnibus edition, which has everything in it, more material and stuff like that.
Nice.
But the funny thing is about it is that, Space 1999, I dumped $40,000 into Planet of the Apes because I paid for all those artists myself. I took care of getting the whole book together, and then I found Archaea as a plan, and they published it, but they didn't pay for anything. They just paid to publish it, So I put $40,000 into that book, and I never saw a dime back. But I look at it as that $40,000 launched my career. Because not only did I suddenly have a property, which then caused someone at Fox to read and say, "Hey, you want to be a consultant," which obviously led to Alien and Predator and everything else. But on top of that, my name was instantly published with the likes of Jim Steranko, because I got Jim to do the cover, Dave Dorman, like all these huge names as artists. Where you look up their name and my name comes up next to them now. So it was like, you know what, this is better than paying for college to get to your job. It's only $40,000. I can live with this. And I was making the money to afford it then, thank God. But there's some place I was going to go with this and I totally forgot now. But that's typical. Point is that
sounds like me when I'm GMing.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I've never been around when he's GMing. I feel bad for your players if that's true. Because
well, there was a one-shot adventure, or it was supposed to be, and 7 weeks later.
Well, the first Alien one, we did Act 3 in 5 parts.
We did.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the last days. Last day?
That took us 5 parts, because if you give this group somewhere to sit and talk, they will do that.
Never stop
in character. They just love acting. Yeah, they just love acting. I feel blessed that I have more of an community acting troupe than I do gamers.
That's great. I mean, the whole point is that everybody's get together and have fun. Who cares how long you run it through? That? If people are bored, you got a problem.
Yes. But I do know, because obviously it's important, the 3rd act of this trilogy is coming out, which is Heart of Darkness.
Yes, it is.
It would be very remiss of us not to let you talk about that. I've got everything so far you've done. It's the only game I can think of that I actually own every book to, which means I like it. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on that. I saw it's another box set, which is awesome. So apart from each one's been completely different. So I'm assuming the third one is also completely different. We've had Destroyer of Worlds is Space Marines. The first one, Space Truckers. I'm assuming the third one's something different. I did have one thought, though, because I was just curious. The title, Heart of Darkness, any inspiration from the Conrad novel?
Not yes and no. I mean, the plot is not at all like the Conrad novel. It'd be look, that Conrad novel and then Apocalypse Now, it's very easy to take that and turn it into an alien adventure. That would be really awesome. But I had no desire to do that. The Heart of Darkness, you can see it on the cover. There's a massive black hole that the space station is orbiting. And that black hole is the Heart of Darkness. So it's it also ties into something else that's in the story. The Alien has a tradition of taking names from Conrad stuff and using it for ships and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to do that. And I was just like, Chariot of the Gods, Destroyer of Worlds, Heart of Darkness. This all sounds like these belong together.
Yep.
It works,
Yep.
You play explorers, like a science team that's a new life form is discovered somewhere around this black hole in orbit.
Ooh.
And the company has paid you. This is all on the back of the box, so I'm not giving away anything. The company basically contacts you and offers you a huge sum of money. Offers you they'll pay off the university of your choice to get you tenure there, and a book deal, a lucrative book deal, and all this stuff. You just have to go and catalog this thing for them. So of course,
how could
what
that
could go wrong? Yeah.
It's a little suspicious how generous they are about it, but yeah. So I can't give away details, although most people know this already. So if I will just put it out there, because the PDF has been released. If you pre-order the book, you get the PDF. If one of your player character dies, you get to pick up the cat.
Yes.
So
yes, I heard that.
Cat is based on this lovely beast that's slumbering behind us.
Yes.
The cat in the game is named Adrian, and so is he. It's funny. I gave them photos of Adrian, and they pretty much just painted the photos. It's ridiculous. It's literally him.
Amazing.
I think you've just given Emily an incentive to kill herself off.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Oh no. Well,
nice. There's an airlock. Bye.
Well, they already joke that if we ever hurt a cat and it went into the vents, that I'd die.
Yep.
But it was interesting for the cat because I wanted to do this from the beginning. Okay, like I wanted more domestic animal stuff for two reasons. One, the cat in Jonesy is important to Alien. Okay.
Yeah.
For two, the dog and or bull in Alien 3 that gives birth to the thing. So we want other types of hosts. Cats are too small, thank God. But I wanted to do all this domestic animal stuff, and they were like, "Stop! You're writing too much already. Stop." So I had to push that back. So I sort of snuck the cat thing into this to see if they would notice, and they liked it. They really liked it. I had to come up with stuff for because you're surrounding this massive, terrifying black hole. Stress levels are through the roof in this adventure. There's new rules for stress related to being the proximity of the black hole. Okay. And the cat, one of his abilities is if you're around him, sit with him, pet him, and he starts to purr, it'll lower your stress. So, I tried to work in things like that made perfect sense. I gave him abilities that make sense for a cat that allows him to go places you couldn't go. And also, his agendas are totally not in sync with the group's agendas, and I'll probably get you killed. The cat character will probably get everyone else killed.
Well, I mean, in the first film, Ripley went out of her way. Well, I mean, we did have every time someone followed the cat, they got killed. But I mean, at the end, Ripley went out of her way to try to save the cat. So they were definitely an important element of that story still.
Yeah.
So, I was very happy to finally be able to do it. And I was very happy. I love this cat more than life. He's been my Chewbacca.
Aw.
And so, it was great to be able to put him in it.
Oh,
how's he dealing with his newfound fame?
I don't know if he cares.
Yeah.
His agenda's different.
Very true.
He's asleep on his stuffed fish.
Aw.
Yeah.
He loves his stuffed fish. I buy him several of them, and he always like takes them from all around the house and puts them in a pile and lays on them. I don't know what that's about, but
It's his agenda.
yes,
It is
that's his
beyond
agenda.
our-
You know what?
It's
his
beyond our
agenda.
comprehension.
I wish I had put that in there. Collect stuffed fish.
Oh God, he's just bringing aliens into the sleeping quarters of the crew.
Yeah.
He's made a pile. Okay.
Look what I brought you.
I mean, that actually may be a thing if you've seen the picture. That's in the book.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen the picture. Yeah.
So without giving away what that is, I will tell a story about, I don't know how many times this happened when I was a kid. We had indoor-outdoor cats. Adrian is an indoor-only cat.
Mm.
We had indoor-outdoor cats as a kid, and cat is very appreciative that you feed them. So they bring you a
Yeah.
present,
Yep.
some dead thing that you're like, what the hell is that? And it's not dead. It's just been waiting for the cat to put it down.
Oh,
And now this thing's in your house. What the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah.
it's only playing dead.
So yeah, so that's inspiration for something that happens in Heart of Darkness. So
Very
it's
cool.
vague enough.
Uh,
So when you did Chariot, was the plan at that point that you were going to do a trilogy, or that just sort of happened?
I knew I was doing something else with Chariot.
mm.
And in fact, there's some stuff that was written in Chariot originally that cut out because it was accidentally seen as a mistake. Perfect example. In the Colonial Marine book, it's made clear that before your characters get to the ship in Chariot, a Marine team has boarded that ship and done something.
Mm.
Okay. I left clues of that in Chariot without explaining them, and they seemed random and out of place, so they were removed from the adventure. For example, there's a pulse rifle that's sitting in the armory laying on like a bench in the armory. And nerd wise, that pulse rifle wasn't created yet when that ship had left on its mission, because it left in the 2111, and the pulse rifles I think were built in 2170. So everyone looking at it was like, well, this shouldn't be here. So on the second edition of the book, they removed it. And they changed it to a gun that was appropriate for the era. And I was like, all right, that's fine. but I realized because of my it's too big when I edited things down, it wasn't clear why I was leaving it there. And if Chariot never had a sequel, why the hell was this even mentioned? It doesn't really fit to the plot of Chariot itself. Now that we know we're building this bigger thing, it's easier to put things like that in and know they're going to have a payoff later. But it was a little weird the way it went down there. So I mentioned it anyway in the Marine book, because I realized, hey, this was kind of the setup of why this stuff gets where it does. So I kind of need to have it here. So it's mentioned again there.
See, now I'm tangenting, but in that Marine book, I vaguely remember some, I'll call them strange, because the toys when they come out for some of the properties back in the 80s were sometimes a little weird. Like Robotech and Star Wars did a bunch that you looked at and went, this is not really, what is this you've just released?
Yeah.
Some of those vehicles, I have this weird like this deja vu moment where I'm like, did I see a toy like this? Is it now a vehicle in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So the X-Wing, let's use Star Wars as an example. Okay. The X-Wing fighter that came out in 1979, the toy, it's stubby. Its cockpit is way too big because you need to fit the figure in there. It's fun. When you look at it, you say, hey, X-Wing, but you also look at it and look at a picture of an X-Wing, you're like, hey, it's completely wrong.
Right.
Doing that to a thing is called making it toyetic.
Okay.
That's a term in the toy industry. Okay. So I thought, let's look at the alien stuff from the toys that came out in the 90s and say, this is the toyetic version of what? Now design what that would have been before they made a toy of it. And that's how those designs came ahead. So yeah, no, that was another thing that was really important to me, getting a bunch of stuff. I want to draw upon all the stuff, because there's a lot of cool stuff. Even if it's goofy, there's a way to draw on it where it's no longer goofy.
Yeah, well, it's super cool, because I mean, with Space Marines, basically a lot of people they have one handgun, one shotgun, the big machine gun, and the pulse rifle. They have one type of ship, one lander, like the drop ship, and then one APC. And it's like, there is not a military in existence that operates only on so few sort of things. There has to be more things.
Right. And just because we didn't see it in the movie doesn't mean that they don't exist in that universe. So, but there's all this stuff to draw upon. So why not draw upon it? I drew up a lot of stuff from the tech manual, the Colonial Marine tech manual that came out in the 90s also. There's stuff in there from the comics. The UPP from William Gibson's Alien 3 was very important to me to put in there, the Union of Progressive Peoples, because I just felt like, people were like, oh, that's so dated, it's Cold War stuff, it's schlocky. There's conflict with Russia now, but it's like, and while the UPP was designed to draw upon our feelings of the Cold War and with the Soviets and everything, it really was kind of designed more as a socialist government, not necessarily communist. Okay. And so the way I approach it is that there are member states in the UPP that actually are communist, but the prerequisite to be a part is to be socialist, or, communism comes out of socialism. So it's fine. You couldn't be a capitalist to be part of the UPP.
Right.
But I just thought that they added another level to it, because you looking at Americans, communism, socialism, those are just strange things. They're alien to us, it's another alien thing, because it's just a different way of thinking, which is alien to ours, so it was really fun to bring that in and use it as why do we have these tanks? I mean, these APCs and these drop ships, why do we have this military engine? We must have some kind of conflict with somebody. We'll use the UPP. So,
because what mentioning the Cold War, it reminded me of something from the first film, and I remembered, because I wondered about this part of it, because I remembered, I think it's the Saab Viggen fighter jet. They have almost a cassette player built into the jet, and they would put the cassette in, but it had the navigational data because it was the magnetic tape, and that's how they got their mission waypoints and stuff like that. Nostromo has cassette.
And did you see what I did with the cassette tapes in the core book, or no?
No, I haven't. I mean, I've read it from cover to cover, but I haven't remembered everything. That's why I was just wondering, was it just retro tech, or was it to do with the magnetic tape?
It's magnetic tape. I did a whole bunch of research. I was like, God, how am I going to explain these TDK 90s? And I did a bunch of research on magnetic tape, and I found out there was all this new things that they're doing with magnetic tape, where you can put terabytes of data on things now and stuff like that. So the 90 is the terabytes, not the minutes.
Right.
So, when he states it says a 90 written on the side or a 60 on the side, it's talking about the terabytes of data it holds. And they're designed as disposable media on the frontier. It's as simple as that. So I was like, did I have to touch it? Did I have to mention these stupid tapes that are lying that you can only see in HD if you zoom in with a very long screen?
Yeah.
No, I didn't have to, but
but that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. No, it's cool, and it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love the tech levels. I love the fact that there's all this old school tech, and it perfectly makes sense to me that Wayland's ship has all this crazy high tech stuff because he's the richest person in the galaxy. I mean, come on, Prometheus was an expensive ship for a rich guy, and the problem is that if something broke down, I hope they have another plasma jet in the back to replace that monitor. But replacement parts for CRT stuff is a lot easier to manufacture if you're on a dirt ball in the middle of space with a mining facility than it is to go build one of those. So it makes sense to low tech it when you're out there.
Yeah.
We were talking about the ships, and then we were talking about the vehicles. I can't remember. There's something else I was going to go with that, but whatever.
As a curious note, back in the 2000, they said those tapes could only store up to 100 gigabytes of storage. Now they can store 18 terabytes of storage. So that's a lot of data.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of selfie pics, right?
So 100 years from now, having throwaway tapes that have 90 terabytes on it is like that's a low USB stick,
Yeah.
It fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
And it's like that's the thing. It's like it's called science fiction. So people are like, "Well, who cares? It's science fiction." I'm like, "Yeah, but what's that word before fiction?"
Yeah.
So what can I take and look at real science and extrapolate to bring us to the fiction part?
Yeah, but it all adds to it. It makes it I think that one thing, and I'm sure all my group is absolutely sick of me talking about, is tone in regards to setting. Because, like you said it earlier, if you play D&D, you can make it your own. And while we'll make it our own Alien, at the same time, if you stray too far, it's not Alien anymore. If you stray too far, it's not Trek anymore. If you stray too far, it's not Star Wars, etc. You want to be playing these settings because of what it is. And I've tried to always say, what with Alien especially, but with all the games we do, we're trying to make an Alien movie that we'd actually want to watch. So if you do something that you go like, if this was on film, would you be saying it's cool? Yeah. No. Well, then don't do it. Like, that's your guide. If it seems
that's I'm writing my Alien movies when I make these box sets, these cinematics. Absolutely. Once they said it's going to be a cinematic scenario, and I was like, wait, you mean like a movie? And they were like, yep. I was like, all right, I'm writing my Alien movies. That's what I'm doing here. So yeah, I get it. I get it.
Which do you prefer, cinematic to campaign? I know they're different, so it is, apples and oranges, but do you think one works better than the other for Alien?
It's a lot easier for me to write a campaign book than it is for me to write. Because I don't have to think about writing, I know what this gun does, and I know something cool and funny I can say about it, and boom, okay, I can do all that stuff really easy. The cinematics, there's a lot of back and forth between me and Free League. Because they have standards of how they present all their materials that I may not get because I'm not in charge over there. I don't, and so it's like, I will write something. I'm not a rules guy. Okay. But I'm like, all right, it's a really cool event. Let's pretend the ship is crashing and you have to do a barrel roll. You have to do this. You have to do that. But if you don't do this, it's okay because this will happen instead. And I write this complicated rules to make this all make sense. And Thomas comes along and goes, no, 2 rolls, done. And he's right. Absolutely right. Because that's the system they have going. That's the way this works. I'm figuring it out like D&D because that's where I come from. And I have to stop doing that. But there's all this back and forth. And then it's like, the biggest problem is that I've written something that should be 5 acts, not 3. So what are we doing? What are we cutting out? And because I'm on attention, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so great. It's going to be so great. Oh my God, what have I done? How many words did we just write? And it's easier to keep that under control for me for a campaign book than it is for the cinematic. But I'm so proud of the cinematics in the end. So
yeah, they've been, the 2 I've got so far. Obviously, haven't got Heart yet, but the 2 I've got, they've been amazing. It's taken me a lot of time to prep, but it's because it's good. And I can imagine having to sometimes, although they don't feel constricted in any way, that it's still there's still a level of constriction that must happen in a cinematic compared to the campaign with certain situations and things.
Well, a lot of stuff, it's like with the campaign book, I'm giving you rumors and giving you ideas. I'm giving you jumping off points. And even with the adventures, they're short adventures. Okay. Oh, something happened?
Somebody dropped something. Okay.
There's an alien in there?
There might be. I haven't checked what it was. So.
Yeah, but I'm so proud of them in the end. Like, I got to tell you, when Destroyer won the Silver Award, right?
Yes.
Then it won for the maps as well. And I do a hell of a lot of work on those maps. Christian Gareth, he's the designer, so he cleans them up in the end and makes them, look like the beautiful versions you finally see. But I spent forever on those maps, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Not only did we get it for the adventure, but we got it for the maps this time. I was like, this is amazing. This feels so good, And it's so funny how much that map thing meant more to me than anything else, because I wasn't trained to do maps. I do maps because I'm an artist, Well, my approach to the maps are always, I want each level to be a completely different shape so that iconically you don't get lost where you're at. So like this one's a triangle with a circle, and this one's an L shape with a loop. And, nothing's ever just the same thing, but with different rooms. It's a very iconically different shape. So yeah, I don't know why we're talking about that. Again, tangent. But
tangents are good.
Absolutely.
We are Team Tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Is it hard to write what would be cool to what will work in reality? Meaning, like, you open the door to the hold and there's 12 xenomorphs, and that's fucking cool because it should be, from a story point of view, 12 xenomorphs. But as it's a game, the party is now dead.
See, that's the thing. Like, when I know the rules so much better now than I did before. But when I first wrote Destroyer, there were 125 aliens in the and I was like, whoa, what's the big deal?
We're very dead.
What's the big deal? And Thomas was like, no. No. Maybe the Hive has that many aliens, but we're only going to give the players 6 to deal with, okay? Because even with 6, they're going to be dead.
Oh, yes.
I think we had 5 in Hope's Last Stand.
I think so. We all got
actually
horribly murdered by
One
gets murdered at each stage along the way. And I think it was only 5, and it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was a learning curve for me. And honestly, most of and again, he's 100% right when I'm saying this, but most of my time going back and forth with Thomas is Thomas saying no. And he's absolutely correct. I can't argue with it, and I've just there's this immediate reaction when someone tells you no, no matter what the reason is.
Yeah.
You're like, well, why not? And I have gotten past that on all this stuff because not just with Thomas at all, but not talking about him. I'm talking about, like, say, approvals from Disney or approvals from another licensor or something like that. It's like, they're like, well, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, okay. So I explain it to them. And if they still, and then usually they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Thank you for explaining. We're done. Sometimes they're like, well, we think it'd be better like this. And I'm like, that's fucking dumb. I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not fucking doing it. Well, wait a minute. I do it like this. All right, I'll do it. That's what it comes down to. It's like, it seems like it's the worst idea ever. And then I'm like, no, wait. They'll be happy. I'll be happy also. We can do this.
Yes.
It's all about that. It's not my universe. A lot of people have mistakenly said that here's the guy who controls the canon for the alien universe. No, I don't control anything. The job title is consultant.
Right.
That means I tell the people at the studio, this is what I think should be, and they say yes or no.
Yep.
Well, most of the time they may say yes. That means I have a good say on what's going on here. Anything they say no on, I say, yes, sir, may have another. It's right. Like, I got to make room. It's their property. I don't decide these things. Ridley Scott doesn't come in to pitch a movie idea, and I sit there with a cigar and say, Ridley, it doesn't really fit with the canon. It doesn't happen. Ridley Scott's, the Ridley Scotts of the world are on a much higher level in this business than I am. My job is not to tell them, well, Ridley, you're going off script with this. My job is to say, now I got to make what Ridley wants to do make sense. Okay? And Ridley doesn't even really necessarily know I've done this because he doesn't really care, nor should he. He cares about his beautiful movie he's making and the next movie he's making, and the man's a genius, and let him go do that.
Yeah.
But then there's the franchise department that has to think about the comics and the books. What are we going to do with toys? And we're going to do with that. And my job is to sit there and say, okay, we can take that thing he said he did and make it make sense by applying this thing to it. And that's what I do. And sometimes I sit there and I say, okay, I could do something about this element that's left hanging in the prequel movie. I could totally do this. And I could totally get this approved from Disney because I know what to say to them and it'll work. Or what Ridley's going to do with that thing, and he may use it in the next movie. So I'm absolutely going to talk around that instead because I don't want to screw it up on accident.
Right.
I take it very seriously.
Right.
I just feel like I remember random tangent. I remember Batman and Robin from Joel Schumacher. Okay. That awful. I don't know anybody who likes that movie.
I don't either.
was like, what the hell is this? It's the only movie I actually tried to get up and walk out of the theater when I was watching all my life. And my girlfriend kept yanking my arm, pulling me back down to the seat. Because at the time, I had just been tutored by Denny O'Neil about Batman. And you know, it was like, what the hell is this? This is nothing about what this is supposed to be. And then I remember, putting it on my mind. And I remember a few years later, Joel Schumacher released a public apology for Batman and Robin, saying that he was sorry, he didn't think it through, blah, 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 blah. And that made me more angry. This is just as a fan. This is not me as working in the business in any way, shape, or form at this point. I got more angry because I was like, how dare you just think you do this? You have a responsibility because Alien or Batman or these things, they are more important than we are. They're going to outlast us, is the way I look. Okay. Star Wars is more important than somebody deciding they'd rather really do something else and just throw this in here because isn't the funny rabbit guy funny? No, it's not. I'm not going to go into details about that, but you know, it's like you have a responsibility to this thing, which is now these things are our modern mythology. These are the things that were sat around campfires and talked about Perseus and Medusa and all these things back in the day. That's what this stuff is. This is our modern mythology. And these things are going to outlast us. And as much as I hate to think about it, I'm going to be long gone in the grave, and somebody's still going to be calling that alien creature from Covenant the Praetomorph, because that's what I called it in the role-playing book. You know, it's these things will continue to grow past us, and it's more important than us. I don't have kids. I'm a single guy. My legacy is these books. My legacy is what I brought to these things. I have brought things to this. I would love to know that 50 years from now, someone's doing a movie adaptation of Chariot of the Gods, and I'll never see it, but I added something that inspired that, and that's fantastic, you know? So I don't know. Maybe I sound like a freak by saying this stuff, but it just always feels like these things are bigger than us, and we have to think about what we're doing and be responsible.
Oh, it's funny that, like, on the mythology level on that, because like with my son, he picks up all this stuff that he doesn't always understand, but uses it in the right way. His mum turned off the lights one night when he had to go to sleep, and all I heard was, "How can they turn off the power, man? They're animals." He hadn't seen the
film. That's awesome.
I can just see him saying that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's say hello to my little friend. That's another one.
Yeah.
And he was like 11 or 10 at the time, and there's no way he's seen Scarface and that, the Taxi Driver and all those sort of movies. But yeah, they're out of these
things. You pick up these things because someone else said it and you don't know the context, but now it's in your vocabulary. So.
Yep.
Yeah.